Change a question, change your life. When it comes to planning your life, I want to get you to learn to ask 3 questions now. And the first one is not, what am I going to do? The question you want to ask yourself is, what do I want? What's my outcome? What's my result? The first one is to get you focused on the target. The target is not the activity. The activity can change. It's what's the result I'm after. If you know exactly what it is you really want, what you desire, what you're really after, clarity is power. The more clear you are on specifically what you want, the faster your brain can get you there.
This episode is brought to you by RPM, the Rapid Planning Method, the system that Tony has used to not just achieve massive results in his life and create his $6 billion business empire, but a life driven by purpose, by his why. To find out more about RPM and how you can achieve more with less time, register for the RPM webinar at www.tonyrobbins.com/RPM-webinar. That's www.tonyrobbins.com/RPM-webinar.
What does it take to successfully create a lasting change in your life? The first step is you got to have a vision for what it is you really, truly want. Something has the power to pull you. Push requires willpower, and willpower never lasts. What will last is having something so exciting, so attractive, something you desire so much that you have a hard time going to sleep at night and you get up early in the morning to rock it and take it to the next level.
Welcome to the Tony Robbins Podcast. You're listening to an episode that's part of a season where we explore the 5 areas of life that many people focus on improving at the start of a new year: health, productivity, personal finance, relationships, and the focus of today's episode, career. Did you know the average American will spend over 90,000 hours at work over the course of their lifetime? And 87% of Americans have no passion for the job they do. The statistics are very clear. We're working our lives away, and the majority of us don't even like what we do. This time of year, it's likely you may have thought about your career and what changes you'd like to make. Maybe you want to ask for a promotion, start your own business, or even change your career path entirely and make the leap into doing something that's more fulfilling to you. No matter where you are in your career, if you're established or just getting started, and what goals you've set for yourself this year, there's one thing that is true. Technology is changing the way we work, and it's changing fast. There's no doubt that technology has made our lives a lot easier in the workplace. For those of you that remember things like fax machines and dial-up internet, you can probably appreciate this. But as the pace of innovation continues to accelerate, many people fear that technology will displace jobs and the workers who can't compete with machines. On the other hand, many argue that it will actually create jobs, opportunities, and entire industries. Regardless of what side of the coin you're on, whether you think AI and automation will create or destroy, it's going to change the fundamental nature of our economy. The things that we're going to do for work, how we build our careers, and how we even define what a career or job is, will shift dramatically. And we need to be prepared and make sure that we're providing as much value in the marketplace as we can so we stay competitive. In this episode, we're exploring the future of work, what it means, and how you can create a career that you love in the wake of technological disruption. You'll hear from Alicia Abate, an expert on the subject, who helps people find fulfillment and freedom in their careers while future-proofing their jobs. But first, here's Tony on how you can stay competitive and provide more value in the market as the world continues to change. He's interviewed by Dan Roth, editor-in-chief at LinkedIn. Here's Tony and Dan.
You give a lot of advice to people who are at the top of their game or trying to reach the top of their game.
Yes.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who's just starting out, someone who's just graduating and needs to know what to do to be successful? They want to be the next Paul Tudor Jones, or
Yes.
they want to be the next Tony Robbins.
Yes.
What do you say?
Well, I think the most important thing is what do you really want it, not who you want to be. You don't want to be Tony Robbins, you want to be Paul. I love Paul. You don't want to be Paul. He's a great role model, to say the least. I love the man because he's one of the greatest contributors I know. What he's done with Robin Hood and what he does with his life personally is extraordinary. But role models should be examples for you, but you got to decide, what do you want to give? What are you here to deliver? I think you got to fall in love with whose lives do you want to touch and through what vehicle. You can't fall in love with your product or your service today. It's going to change. You got to fall in love with the client. And so you got to decide, who do I want to serve? And you got to know more about their needs, their wants, their fears, their desires than they do. And you got to anticipate how to meet those. And you got to remember that technology is going to change it, competition is going to change it, the government's going to change the rules. It's three-dimensional chess. And unless you are constantly striving to be ahead of that path and find a way to add more value, you're going to get eaten up. I mean, what is it? You know, you got 4 out of 100 businesses that make it after 10 years, and 96% fail. So if you're gonna have an advantage, you need to say, well, what is it I want to do? Now, I would say that you also have to say, like a lot of people say, find your passion. I say you got to find your passion, you got to find your competency, and you got to find the market, right? A lot of people have passion but no competency. And so they'll be struggling a good portion of their life. You got to make sure you match those two, but you also find a market. Where can I serve a group of people? What's a problem I can solve? And that's perhaps scalable in size if you want to do something on scale. Or you got to say, I want to be a great artist, and here's what's going to fulfill me, and here's how I'm going to keep growing. But the common denominator I learned from my original mentor is a man named Jim Rohn. He was a personal development speaker. I remember I first met him, and I had forefathers. We were totally broke. One of the reasons this year I'm feeding 100 million people, I fed 56 million so far myself, and I've got matching funds, so we're up to 82 million people, is I've been feeding people my whole life, 42 million people over the course of my life. But when I was 11, somebody fed my family. We had no food at Thanksgiving, which we wouldn't have starved, but we were gonna have a Thanksgiving treat, and somebody came and took care of us. I tell you that because my fathers were hardworking people, all 4 of them. They were always broke, they're always struggling. So I met Jim Rohn, I'm like, how is this possible? You know, I can see people that work a third the time my father, and they're wealthy. And my father works his guts out, and we don't have money for food. I mean, how's that possible? Part of it is how that money was spent, you know, abuse and alcohol and things of that nature. But what Jim Rohn taught me was that it's really, in the world, we all have intrinsic value. But in the financial world, it's about how can you become more valuable to people than anybody else? And I think today, you have to anticipate that this is a knowledge workplace now. It is not brawn. It is the capacity to know and to utilize information. It's wisdom to be able to act and produce results faster than anybody else. And if it was me starting my career, I'd be saying, where's the market where the greatest opportunity is that's going to fulfill me and give me a chance to make a difference? And then what skills and tools do I get now, but how do I keep upping my game constantly? Because Rohn taught me, he said, work harder on yourself than you ever do on your job or your business. Because if you can become more valuable, sizably so, you will produce an amazing result. You see people work at McDonald's and work their guts out time-wise. They work hard, but what they're doing, you can teach someone to do with the devices we have these days in about 30 minutes, right, or less. If you see a David Tepper who, you know, gets paid $4 billion or something of that nature, you go, it's so incredibly unfair. Yes and no. You know, when people are getting, you know, a few